Okay, good day everyone. Thank you for everyone that attended the workshops the past 2 weeks. Thank you for everyone that attended Bloemfontein as well. And yeah, so this is the first recording for the year, and just to keep track of where the residential guys is, I'm gonna roll out one or two videos like this that you can start looking at. So our first informal assessment will be in the form of a little assignment, and I'll post that on Blackboard for you soon. And it will be based on today's lecture, or on this lecture, and it's all about Unit 1. So basically, we're going to look at Chapter 1, Topic 1, the construction industry, just give you a bit of a background of what it entails. So looking at Unit 1, we're going to look at we're going to distinguish between the construction manager and distinguish the construction project manager and evaluate the construction industry. Okay, so most of you guys already understand these concepts, and it's nothing new. So that's why this is a bit of just a background, so that we know exactly what we're going to focus on during this course. So thirdly, we're also going to evaluate the construction industry. So the content is all about the industry structure, and the industry culture, and the construction industry reports. Okay, so the reports is one or two things that we're gonna highlight from them, which is quite important for me. So also please look at your self-study, informal assessment, which I'm still going to communicate, and then we're going to have our workshop 1, which we already had. So this is just a bit of a revision of some of the items that we already touched on. Okay, so looking at the definitions, basically I'm just going to quote two of them. The one for a construction manager is the manager of the physical construction process within the built environment, and includes the coordination, administration, and management of resources. The construction manager is the one point of responsibility in this regard. The construction project manager, however, is the management of projects within the built environment to complete from conception to completion, and it includes management of the related professional services. The construction project manager is the one point responsibility in this regard. Okay, and then I just included the construction regulations 2014 definition of the construction manager, and it means it is a competent person responsible for the management of the physical construction processes and the coordination, administration, and management of resources on a construction site. So you can see there's a very distinct difference between the consultant and the contractor. So yeah, it's more or less a good way of defining it, or a very quick way of defining it. Okay, then I just included the Wikipedia definition as well. You can just read through here, and this is just a bit of background, additional background for you guys to understand the concept. Okay, so the seriousness of the construction regulations I just highlighted. The principal contractor must in writing appoint a full-time competent person as the construction manager with the duty of managing all the construction work on a single site, including the duty of ensuring occupational health and safety compliance, and in the absence of the construction manager, an alternate must be appointed by the principal contractor. Okay, so basically it just emphasizes how important it is to have a competent person on site, a professional person. Okay, and then I just added these two links to some interesting videos. The one is about Simon Sinek and just general motivation in general, and then the other one is the one that I'll refer to a little bit later in the presentation with regard to the spaghetti challenge. Okay, so looking at the construction project management, I'm just comparing it to Burke, which is a very project management orientated look at how a project a project work and not necessarily a construction project. So we have our concept and inception, design development, implementation or construction, and the commissioning or handover. So you can clearly see that there is quite overlapping criteria or stages, if you want to call it that. Okay, and then we've got our SACP CMP stages, which is stages 1 and 2, inception and concept, and feasibility or viability. Please note that some professions call it viability, but it's not really much different. Then we've got our design, and then our procurement in stage 4. And then we have construction, the execution or administration phase, and then we've got our closeout. Okay, and like I said in the workshops, please do not underestimate the stage 6, because a lot of is dependent on it, and for you to get your final money, 5% of your project fees and all construction fees is quite a lot. Okay, just going through the inceptions, I'm just going to go through the outcomes of this is according to the SACP CMP's guidelines, fee guidelines. So please have a look at these definitions. How I'll usually ask these questions is I might ask you to explain to your client what can be expected from you in this inception stage, and for this inception stage and the next, and so forth. So basically, just looking at the outcomes, there's a project brief. The scope is captured in this project brief. You've got this project procurement policy, which basically says how you're going to procure this project. Are we going to go out on open tenders? Are we going to have a short list? Is it going to be a turnkey type of project? That type of things. Signed consultants agreements. Okay. Not necessarily all the consultants. There will be consultants which will be appointed later on if the design is a bit more clear and you see, oh, okay, now we need a mechanical engineer. And then the project initiation program, which we'll expand on later on. Obviously, record all your meetings. This is for yourself and for the client. And then approval to go to stage 4. Okay, please make sure that you do look at this, because we're also in working on enclosed systems. So we're going from the one stage to the other stage. It's important to note that the output of your stage 1 will be the input of your stage 2. So if it's signed off, you're safe. And because usually the client later on asks, but when did we take this decision? So then you can refer back to the signing off of all this information. Okay, going to further on. Okay, so this is just an example of some of the consultants that might be appointed on a building project. And this is a typical layout of such a program that you might have. So it just gives a very broad overview of the project, where you have your consultants appointments, your detailed design, document and procurement, tender evaluation, capital approval, construction period, and then your closeout here as well. Okay, so it just gives you this is a very simplified outlay that we had for a project. Okay, then the concept and viability. Okay, just the definition, finalizing of the project concept and feasibility. Basically looking, can we go on with this project or not, or should we stop it right here? So you've got your signed consultants agreements, so more people come on board to assist in the design, and then you indicate the project documentation and construction program. Then obviously get approval by the client. Basically what you're approving is to finalize the project concept, and yes, the QS usually looks at the cost and can you go further. Okay, so please remember to read through this, which assists you with the outcomes. Okay, typical information that you might have on this site is this is a typical detail that we had on on a project, and it was just a 3D rendering of the possible buildings and concept from the architect, which actually just gave a bit of a overview of what the project will entail. And then usually you get areas from the architect for the design and just a typical flow of information. So this is a typical cost estimate. This is the estimate that we did on that project. And yeah, just to give you a bit of an overview, here you can clearly see the occupation areas, and then you could also identify what is the important stuff. So the client can immediately say, no, we don't have 29 million, we only have 20 million. So then you can start filtering out items which might cost a bit, and you can prioritize what is more important than the other, and you can work on your phases. So okay, just a few concepts that you can think of. Again, this is how we just measure it on dimension X. Okay, and just to get the square meter areas for the project. Okay, so that's stage 2. Getting to stage 3, this is where design actually is done. So now you've gone through the motions and the client has shown you, okay, this is the scope that I want, and this is what we need from the project. And now you can start dishing out or having meetings on the design. So you have your consultants that you approve, you update your program, you update the indicative construction program. Now you have clarity on what the size of the project might be, so you can now update that and actually refine your project construction period. And then obviously you need to record all your meetings and approval by the client to proceed to stage 4. Okay, so basically manage and coordinate and integrate the detail design development process within the project scope, time, cost, quality, and parameters. This is usually the phase for the architect where he does his biggest design. So in stage 3 he does get quite a lot of fees, anything between 20% or so of his full fees is paid out in this phase. Okay, just typical details that one can expect. So you can see there's a lot more detail. There's actually information contained within the building. Looking at this was a evolution that we looked at, so we could see how many showers we needed, how many toilets, lockers that was needed. The actual size of the building could be finalized. So, it can change slightly here and there, but this is more or less how it looks. Again, this instance we did an elemental estimate for the project, and we just made a comparison for the client between different options on the project, and the client could choose a option between these options that suited his objectives. Okay, then stage 4, this is now where you get your working drawings and everything ready. So and ultimately comes to a tender document, and you go out on tender and you get the tenders back. So many of the consultants, this is probably one of the biggest phases or stages, but it differs from role to role. Like for instance, the project manager role is also quite involved in this one, but in stage 5 there's obviously more administration involved. Okay, so the process of establishing and implementing procurement strategies and procedures include the preparation of necessary documentation for effective and timely execution of the project. Okay, so you can go through all the standard services. Okay, so the outcomes is the contractors, subcontractors, and suppliers procurement strategy. Okay, so it's finalized. Are we going to use the NEC contract? Are we going to use the JVCC contract? That type of thing. Tender conditions, and so forth. The procurement program is drawn up. The project tender conditions, record all meetings, approval by client of tender recommendations. Okay, and then the tender report is usually also issued within the stage. Okay, and ultimately a contractor is appointed, so you can see this is all the paperwork. Okay, and then in stage 5, this you'll see the definition is the management and administration of the construct contracts and process, including the preparation and coordination of the necessary documentation to facilitate effective execution of the works. Okay, so this is not a control section, so you will see in the second semester that we're going to focus mostly on this. So just standard services continued, then the outcomes is the signed contractors agreement, agreed contract program, adjudication and award of contractual claims, contractual documentation schedules, monthly progress certificates, monthly project progress reports, record all meetings, and certificates of practical completion. Okay, so that's just the outcomes. And then I just added this. You might remember this is what the public think we do, and this is what we actually do. You set round tables and you discuss who said what when, and yeah, it can become very boring sometimes. Okay, so the major thing on the inception and viability stages is very simple things of capturing the scope of the client. Is he in the market for a normal townhouse or a house development, or is he in the market for building the highest building in the world, or going what type of soil conditions there is available, basically what is his vision. So the scope, please do not underestimate. Within your first 3 phases, 80% of your costs are already pinned down, so please do not estimate or underestimate those phases. Okay, then closeout, the one that I'm also emphasizing, usually don't underestimate it. You'll see now is why I say that is just a definition, the process of managing and administrating the project closeout, including preparation, coordination of the necessary documentation to facilitate the effective operations of the project. Okay, so going through the standard services again, and then the project management deliverables is the works completion certificate, certificate of final completion, record of all meetings, and then the project closeout report. This final account is what the QS usually uses for his next project for estimates. This is quite valuable to do the final account quite accurately, and then the record all meetings. Your closeout report will also give you an indication of how your next project should be tackled. Okay, then arguing on the internet, yes, it's pretty much like this. Sometimes you just need to listen, and then the message will come through clearly. Okay, this is the closeout report, all the items that you produce. Okay, and then here's the first video, the spaghetti challenge. From the spaghetti challenge, one could see what the emphasis is on administration. Please look at the video and see what you can actually learn from that video and project administration. Okay, control, then just the introduction to the first chapter is control is not possible without a plan, and without a program there is no effective means of executing control. Successful projects cannot happen in a vacuum. Nothing is typical about the construction projects. One of the big problems is the construction is the extent of separation between design and production. Okay. So the Department of Business, Enterprise and Regulations, South Africa in 2000 reports that the industry is made up of some 186,000 firms. Okay, this is now according to the UK. I'm going to show you the South African perspective now. 1% is large companies, 6% is medium-sized, and 93% is small. Okay, looking at the South African perspective, you can see that's more or less the case, with the civil contractors being the largest portion, and then the large contractors only being more or less 1% of the market. Same with the general builders. You can see the same ratio. Actually, the ratio is, the gap is much broader, because there's a lot of startup companies which still need to progress through the ranks. You can see there's quite a lot on stage 1, but then it filters out evenly to be more or less the same as the civil guys. Okay, then just on the same information just per province. Quite interesting. Yeah, you can have a look at it. Again, in the industry culture, there's nothing typical about customs and practices in construction. One big challenge is the extent to which the industry separates design from production, far more than other industries. So you can see that's where the major challenge is within the construction project. We work in a fragmented project-based industry. Okay, just looking at the reports of chapter 1. The first report is the Latham report. Just read through this, please. But I just highlighted 1 or 2 things which was quite important for me, is the mistrust between participants. And there was a couple of other things, and you will see these items does relate to the South African industry as well. Then the Latham report set a few targets. I'm not going to test you guys on this. Just please have a look at it. And then this is very important for me. The Latham report specifies that a specific duty for all parties to deal fairly with each other, atmosphere of mutual cooperation is needed. Okay, so team building, the I in team, that concept. Okay, then take all steps necessary to avoid changes. Where they do occur, they should be priced in advance with provision for independent adjudication. Okay, so this is very straightforward, and I think everyone has seen this before, but remember, this is very important for me. Okay, this brings us to the conclusion. Steps to improve the productivity needs to be taken, and better quality design and improved briefing or designers has to be appointed. And then changes to trade and professional training and education is needed, improving the image of the industry, and then encouraging fewer disputes by encouraging partnering, and then improved quality of construction professionals, contractors and subcontractors. The publication of reports from 12 working groups on a diverse subjects. Okay, that last point is not really that relevant, but please have a look at your textbooks with regard to this. Just want to get to the conclusion. Okay, so you can have a look at the conclusions, which is on page 7. So just to embroider a little bit on what I've written here. So the publication of reports from 12 working groups concerning subjects are diverse as clients, briefing, education and partnering. Basically just states that there was a lot of reports, and it's not as easy as just summarizing it in a few points what the industry has to do. Okay, so then we look at the Egan report. I'm also just briefly going to run through these. It was shorter than the previous one, and one highlight is that it proposed that the industry should move away from competitive tendering to a long-term relationship based on the measurement of performance and sustained improvements in quality and efficiency. 5 key drivers of change was identified: committed leadership, focus on the customer, integrated processes of teams, quality-driven agendas, and commitment to the people. And then the main drivers of the client relationships is the need to integrate teams with supply chains, people issue. The report suggested 5 steps to clients when considering to build. Is it really necessary? Assessment of the options, development procurement strategy, and then project delivery and post-project review. Okay, so you can see this is more or less where the different stages looks at. It correlates with that, and yeah, it more or less coincides with when the CIDB actually drafted the 6 stages for the construction industry in South Africa. The National Audit Office report basically just gave us some feedback. 73% of constructions were over budget, 70% were late. The main reason, adverse relationships that exist between the construction firms. Long-term collaboration was emphasized. Okay, so this is just some information from the report. Okay, so this is just a figure that I dropped here. You can have a look at it. Yeah, thank you. That's more or less the first lecture. So please go through the information and make sure that you look at the Blackboard post for the assignment. Thank you. Bye.